Welcome to Grow Getters with host Davis Michelson, who's looking for and discovering agriculture's most inventive side hustles. We'll meet resourceful and innovative entrepreneurs who share how they make extra money moonlighting to keep their farms and families going strong. From starting new businesses to tapping into new technologies, these Grow Getters are redefining what it means to be a farmer.
Hey everybody, welcome to Grow Getters. It's me, Davis. Hi, thanks for tuning in. I've got a really exciting show for you today, but before we get too far, let me ask you to please like and subscribe so you don't miss a single exciting episode of Grow Getters. Today, we'll talk social media and other things with Nebraska rancher and social influencer Natalie Kovarik. From the website for her, she and her husband run a cattle company out there, Kovarik Cattle. From their website, it is our belief that the pursuit of agriculture is a vocation rich in ways beyond money. And for that, we are thankful to call this lifestyle ours. Natalie Kovarik, welcome to Grow Getters. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Good. Now, the first thing that we want to do is establish just a little bit of farm cred. I know that you're in a farming lifestyle now. Were you raised on a farm? What is your farming resume?
I was a little ranch girl. So I actually grew up in Southwest Montana on a cattle ranch there. And people often wonder how my husband was able to get me to leave the beautiful state of Montana to come here to Nebraska. Yes, but it was an easy sell once I saw our ranch here. We're actually in a very beautiful part of Nebraska. But yeah, I grew up on a cattle ranch there. I had 3 older sisters and very involved with our ranch, spent a lot of time on it. And life took me in a different direction.
Well, yeah. And I would like to talk about that for sure because I'm interested in turning points here on Grow Getters. There was a point when you'd gone to college, you had your degree, and you had a career going, a career that you probably could have worked your entire working years and retired from comfortably and everything. But at some point you said, nah, I'm going to do something different. Can you take us, what were you doing after college? And then talk to me about the transition, please.
Yeah, I just really love to keep my husband on his toes. So when we met, I was practicing as a full-time pharmacist. So I always say my parents gave us girls, my sisters and I, a very beautiful gift of choice. They wanted to make sure that if we came back to the family ranch, that they knew it was because we wanted to. That was really what we wanted to do. They didn't want to have any pressure or obligation there. And so they actually encouraged all of us to go get degrees outside of agriculture. And so all of my sisters and I did. Like I said, I got mine in pharmacy, and I have a sister as an engineer and a couple other degrees in there. So I think it's a testimony to agriculture, though, because we all actually, almost all of us, 3 out of the 4, found our way back to, a ranch, whether it was my family ranch or like me, marrying my husband and ranching. So when we met, I was practicing as a full-time pharmacist. And then when we moved, he was in a pretty small community here in Nebraska, and there just wasn't a pharmacy position open. And so, instead of just enjoying a little downtime, I decided to create some online businesses. And that's kind of when you talk about turning points and pivotal points. That was kind of the starting of it, was my start of my social journey, essentially.
Do you mind giving us a few specifics on some of those businesses that you were thinking about then?
Yeah, so I've been doing, online ventures for about, 5 years now. I originally started a direct-to-consumer beef business with a childhood friend, and I always say that was kind of my real introduction to, agriculture and social media and kind of sharing your story and just kind of, I always say, like, the power of social media. That's when I really recognized it, was when I was doing that direct-to-consumer beef business. I did that for a couple of years, and then I ended up stepping away from that and pivoting to what a lot of people, know me for more now, which is kind of building a brand around our family and quote unquote, influencing online. So I have done that for about 3 years now. And then most recently, within the last year, I also started my own podcast. And a lot of people will kind of recognize me from that as well.
Mm-hmm. It's the Discover Ag podcast. Is that right? Have I
Yes,
got that
it
right?
is.
Yes.
Yep.
You and your
Discover
friend
Ag.
Tara? Yeah?
Yes. My co-host is a dairy farmer from New Mexico. So every Thursday we kind of cover the top trending topics, viral pieces, kind of the conversations that are going on in agriculture. And we kind of break those down, giving our, female millennial dairy farmer, cattle rancher approach. And we always say it's equal parts information and entertainment. So it's a lot of fun.
I love that. I love it. That's how I live my life. Equal
Yeah.
parts entertainment and information. So you've got direct to consumer beef going, which actually my stomach just started paying attention when you said
Yeah.
that.
Perked up a little bit.
But so is that still ongoing, or did you decide, you know what, this isn't quite doing what I wanted to do, I'm gonna have to shut it down and move on?
Yeah, no, we actually ended up stepping away from it completely. I think, anyone who is tuning in that has done direct to consumer knows how hard
Mm.
that kind of business model is. And I think there are definitely certain ranches that it's better suited for, for a handful of different reasons. For us, geographically actually played a big portion. So, I was about 3 hours from a processor that I really, really liked because we were shipping. So I had to, find a USDA certified one. And, we're 3 hours from Omaha, 2.5 from Lincoln. So some of those big urban areas that I think, do well for the direct to consumer model, in-person events, farmers markets, pop-ups, things like that.
Yeah.
It was just a pretty big burnout on us to try and make that model work. I was shipping a lot of orders, but that is very tedious and stressful, like shipping perishable items. And
Sure, yeah.
so ultimately, I just looked at my husband one day and said, I just think we should pivot. I had kind of seen the potential you could do with just kind of influencing and sharing a brand. And I thought that might fit our family model a little bit better than kind of the stress and barriers we were up against for the direct to consumer model.
Okay. And see what I like here is it takes a certain amount of humility. It takes a certain amount of wisdom and just plain old horse sense to say, oof, this isn't working. I just got to be done with this. I commend you for that. Let me ask you just a little bit more about that there. Did you have something else in mind when you had that conversation with your husband?
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of picked that out of this because I do think, for youth, there can sometimes be this narrative that, what you start, you must finish, or the degree you get is what the job you should be in for the rest of your life. And kind of this, once you pick a path, stay in that path no matter what and make it work. And I think there's beauty in kind of testing different paths and seeing what fits for you, what, different seasons of life, different things may fit. And so, if you look back at my journey, I've always been one to kind of go down a path and then say like, ooh, is this working or is it not? And then kind of backscale or continue forward. And I always try and give that advice to youth because sometimes that's not the advice they get. I knew I wanted to pivot our family to, like I'd mentioned, kind of the brand around ourselves. My husband and I actually had attended a farming conference in Omaha and YouTube was there. And I'll never forget the moment I was, listening in the audience and there was a back end employee for YouTube whose job was to analyze trends on YouTube. And she was talking about how, according to the numbers, they had never seen a piece of, content like farming skyrocket, essentially, like the consumption, the want, the desire for it on YouTube. They had never seen it before. And so I kind of, after my husband and I left that conference, I remember, having the conversation on the drive home and being like, I really think we should stop the direct to consumer beef business. I was very familiar with Instagram. That's what we were using to promote the direct to consumer. And I said I could continue doing and develop, everything I've learned for Instagram for our family. And then I think we should loop in YouTube and try and monetize and grow and share on YouTube.
On this show here, we talk with a lot of folks who really want to showcase farm life. I don't think I have to tell you, there are a lot of people in this country, in this world, that just don't understand what goes on out there in farm country. And so in a moment, I want to talk about, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I want to talk about the message. Let's not talk about getting the message out there. I would like for you to know, and I'll give you a minute to think about this. What is that farm life? What if you could have the attention of some of these city folk who just don't understand country folk? I don't mean to divide like that, but if you could speak with them, what would you say? In the meantime, I'm going to inspire your thoughts with a musical selection. Goes a little something like this. Farmfluencer, why don't you open your laptop? You've been searching for Wi-Fi so long now. You know you're a fluencer. Yeah, you got the farm life. You better turn on your laptop and showcase farm life. Before we showcase farm life, tell me, what is a sand hill? Let's start there. You live in the sand hills, really?
Davis, I don't think I can skip over that show we all just witnessed and were a part of. I did not know I was getting that when I signed up for this. My goodness.
Well, I'm
Uh,
sure glad that you liked it. Your story inspired me to the point of singing, for better or
you
worse.
just couldn't hold it back. The Nebraska Sandhills is actually a very beautiful part of the state. It's actually a very large part of our state, too. Yeah. Not a lot of people know about it, which is interesting. But it is the world's most largest intact ecosystem. It's a beautiful area. It's just like it sounds. It's rolling grass, hills essentially. And it is perfect prime land for grazing cattle. And so you'll find a lot of cattle country out in Sandhills. And our ranch actually just borders the Sandhills. And so we're in a pretty cool part of the state that I love to actually share online and on my social media channels, because when people think of Nebraska, they think of corn or flat, or maybe they don't even think of it at all. And so when they get to come to my page, I love showing kind of this beautiful imagery that they necessarily wouldn't associate with.
You mentioned going to your page. How do we go to your page? Where can we find you?
Yeah, so I am on a couple different social channels just under my name, Natalie Kovarik. Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn are my prime channels under my name. And then obviously we kind of plug Discover Ag. The podcast is it's my baby. It's my favorite place. So
Yeah. So here we are. You're talking to a room full of city slickers. They don't understand the rural life. You talk about rural roots and all these sorts of things, and I love that. So, what is your message to those folks? What are you trying to influence them about the farm?
yeah, I think my biggest thing is just reminding people that there is a person or a face and a family behind food. I think when we are shopping the grocery stores, it is so easy, especially, you mentioned there's a gap. There is a gap. There's nothing wrong with a gap. I mean, that's what came, with industrialization and all the wonderful things that, that have been able to bring us, the 2% providing for 100%. There's definitely pros of that, right? Like, I don't want to own my own milk cow. I don't want to be milking a cow. So I love that the dairy industry is built large enough to be able to do that for me, so there's wonderful things about that. But, the thing we didn't realize would, as we mentioned, there would be that lack of knowledge, that firsthand experience, that relative who had a farm that you visited. It's just not there anymore. And I think with that, we've just found ourselves in the grocery store seeing a cucumber or asparagus and not seeing, the person behind it that picked it or the family behind it that grew it. And I think all that fear and misinformation and consumer confusion is really rooted around, that missing piece, that there is a person behind the food. And I think that trust they would have in remembering that would be substantially increased if they could connect their food back to knowing a person was behind it.
You're a public speaker as well. You're available to come out and speak. And I love that. I'm curious about that. Were you into that? I mean, public speaking is like the number one fear of humans, except for being eaten by a bear. I think
Yeah.
might be like right at that level too.
Yeah. Actually,
Is it something you've always done?
I have a keynote. The biggest fear is fear of failure. And I work that into my keynote because
Ooh.
I talk a lot about bravery in business and in agriculture. But no, I had the fear of public speaking. I'm definitely a personality that, I thrived and I grew up in theater and things like that. And so I love productions and theatrics and things like that. But something about public speaking actually really intimidated me. And anyone who is a public speaker knows, you get up on stage and you have to have a very provocative, compelling, you have to have something to really say. And so for a long time, even though I had a large, social presence and was getting asked to do speaking, I kind of turned it down because I just didn't know what my voice was. I didn't know what I would get up on stage and say, like, hey, this is important enough to devote 45 minutes, an hour of your time to focus solely on me. And then it kind of clicked within this last year, a couple different keynotes I have that I said, I am passionate about this. And I think I have something really important to say about these things. And so yeah, I threw my hat in the public, speaking realm, and it's been really fun. I actually really enjoy it now that I've gotten comfortable on stage.
We live in a society that sort of doesn't remember, or maybe doesn't want to remember, that failure isn't necessarily final.
Yeah.
Um, some of the greatest ideas have come from horrific failures. Can you
Mhm.
maybe talk to that one out there who's feeling like I've failed? I can never do
Yeah.
anything ever again. What's the
Yeah.
word for that person?
Oh gosh, there are so many inspirational quotes centered around this, fail yourself forward, and failure is just an opportunity to learn how to do better, and actually one of my speeches I give on talks a lot about that because, my husband grew up in agriculture. He's technically fifth generation and I'm technically fourth generation, but our ranch here is first generation. He started it when he came back from graduate school. And so we did a lot of failing forward together to build up our operation. And so I share a lot of those things, that went wrong on the ranch. And I also share the opposite end. I argue and present and speak about how all the risks we took and that willingness to maybe fail, you know, put our ranch a couple years ahead of where it would be if we had chosen a different route and not played it safe. And so, yeah, we've taken some risky ventures and made some risky decisions on our ranch that definitely could have ended in failure. But for failure is where, or failure, the biggest risks are where, the biggest successes are. So if you allow yourself to, hold back from those because of fear of failure, you're just missing out on a lot of really great things in life.
Yeah. Now I was born clear back in the 1900s, and we had phones that you hang on the wall.
Same.
We were like, what do I need a
Same.
computer for? I'm not going to try to go to space or anything.
I
And
have
now,
I have a friend who was like, texting will never take off. Yeah, that will never take off.
yeah, yeah.
What do we need to text someone for?
Right. Do you consider yourself a cutting edge technology person? Have you always been interested in the digital world or whatever? Because you sure seem comfortable.
No, it's so funny. I can't figure it out because I actually love change. I thrive in change.
Okay.
My husband, it drives my husband actually insane. But something about technology, I actually always want to remain not progressive. I think there's something more comfortable and safe to me. And like, why do we have to have more? Why is there another platform? Why is there a bigger, fancier way to do this, or the computer changing? And so, no, when it comes to technology, I'm actually a little always against it. I feel like I'm the last friend to adapt to the latest app or like whatever it is. But I suppose once I get into it, then I'm pretty gung ho. That's just my personality.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that. Okay. Before time gets away from us, have you got sort of the next great big idea percolating away up there? What's next for you?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Discover Ag, our podcast is kind of both Tara's and I's, main focus moving forward. We're really actively working to grow that. We really love our message there and how we show up each week and get to, connect with our community and talk about agriculture in kind of a different, more unique way, and definitely a very current, trending, hot topic kind of way. It's just really fun. And so, yeah, we have a lot of fun ideas about growing that disco community. That's what our listeners call themselves, discos. And then we would love
Disco
to,
community. Hold on
yeah.
now. No, we're not sneaking by that. What? Where did that come from?
Well, it's just the first four letters of Discover, and actually, a Discover
Of course.
listener picked it. We polled and said, what are the terms, words, things you like, and someone sent in disco, and it just stuck. It just stuck.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we'd eventually love to pair the podcast with a TV series, so a visual component where we could go to operations and talk about food and all the things that we talk about in the podcast, but in a visual component as well. And so that would be big picture thinking and big picture goals for us.
Well, you've absolutely got the backdrop to do it out there in the sand hills of Nebraska, and I'm sure New Mexico is not without its loveliness to some degree.
Right. We'll throw them a bone.
Well, it's been a real treat talking to you today. Don't let me cut you loose without telling us where we can get more. Again, remind our viewers where we can find you.
Yeah. Well, if you're tuning to this, you're probably a podcast listener. So hop on over to Discover Ag. We're there every single Thursday, and we actually drop bonus Tuesday episodes. We have interviews as well that are really fun. We bring on industry experts, personalities. So wide variety on Tuesdays. That's a lot of fun. And then my personal social channels is under my name, Natalie Kovarik, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Excellent. Natalie Kovarik, thank you for being on Grow Getters today. Best of luck with whatever you wind up doing next.
It was an honor. Thank you so much.
Production support provided by Jack Heffron and Zach Zingula. Find Grow Getters on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it wherever you find your favorite podcasts. So for Farm Journal Studios, I'm your pal, Davis Michelson. Thanks for watching Grow Getters. Now let's get out there and grow get 'em, everybody.
Grow Getters is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.